You're listening to Snippets from the Summit with your host, Scot McKay.
How's it going, gentlemen? This is Scott, and I want to welcome you to the very first ever edition of Snippets from the Summit. And just like the name suggests, these are going to be ideas directly related to getting better with women and masculinity that will typically take under 10 minutes and sometimes far less than that to present to you guys. And although this is going to be a regular feature of the Mountaintop podcast going forward, they will be irregularly published based on when I happen across an idea that I think is going to be valuable to you as men. Today, I want to kick off with an idea that I don't hear anybody else talking about. But if you're paying attention to the zeitgeist currently with what's going on, especially in pop culture and around you socially, there's a movement back to being authentic, being very, very real. Now, listen, as you guys always have heard from me, there are two kinds of people in this life. People who love to, as I say, piss on each other's leg and tell you it's raining, and people who like to get real with each other, be a little bit blunt, which, you know, some other people, particularly the former type of people I mentioned, can sometimes find distasteful or a little too upfront. And both the people who are the blunt kind, who like to tell it like it is and wear it on their sleeve, and the people who like to piss on your leg and tell you it's raining, tend to prefer hanging around people who are like unto themselves and don't have much of a stomach for hanging out with the other kind of people. But here's the deal. For years now, I don't even want to attempt to put a date on when I first observed this phenomenon happening in society, but for sure it's probably somewhere around when social media started taking hold with the advent of Twitter and Facebook back in the late aughts, have basically been practicing a whole lot less critical thinking than they had, you know, in previous decades or even centuries or millennia for that matter. You're seeing even the most reputable institutions of higher education sort of rewarding their students for thinking like they're told to think rather than thinking for themselves. And you've seen it all around you in other areas, politics, even, dare I say, people's faith. And what has gone on is over the course of years, we've kind of boiled the frog to the point where we've outsourced our critical thinking away from our own personal quote unquote hard drive, which is our brain, right, to this collective cloud, this hive mind, which is social media. Now, I know a lot of you guys listening to this show wouldn't put yourselves in that category. You're critical thinkers. Politically, you probably believe a little bit of both what the right and left has to say, maybe, maybe not. But you're going to find what makes sense, and you're going to abide by that because you thought it through, or else you're going to think something through before you make it part of your quote-unquote core belief system. So what has happened is people who find their echo chamber online, you know, what happens is that media, that group of people and the associated media along with it are deciding what people who think like them and who are a part of their tribe are supposed to think. And over the years, you've seen this migrate away from one position towards another, sometimes with alarming effect. You know, the joke that Elon Musk came up with about 2 years ago was, I support the current thing. And of course, we've seen that move from whatever's creating headlines yesterday to whatever's creating headlines today. The quick example would be nobody is really talking about Ukraine much anymore. It's all Palestine and Israel, right? That's just one example. Now, here's what I've seen the movement towards, like I said. People are starting to rebel against being told what they're supposed to think because it's making less and less sense far too often to simply go along with what the hive mind says to think just for the sake of being a part of something bigger. Lately, you've seen striking examples of how this is starting to take hold even in popular culture. If you watch the Grammy Awards the previous Sunday evening from when I'm speaking to you right now, you notice something amazing. You know, it was so amazing, maybe it happened without you even noticing it. They didn't talk about Donald Trump once. They didn't talk about politics a whole lot, if you'll pass off the one brief instance of Israel and Palestine. And it was really all about music. And of course, as you know about media, whatever drives ratings, whatever sells to the sponsors, whatever puts ads in front of you is what they're going to broadcast. And there has been this breathtaking movement away from making everything so darn political, especially politically liberal, and the Grammys, voila, were about music again. Now, if you look at the artists who were nominated, among them was a gentleman named Jelly Roll. Jelly Roll is not a pretty boy. Jelly Roll looks like he's been ridden hard, put away wet. And even if you're not a fan of country music or whatever genre you want to place Jelly Roll's music in, here you got a guy who's overweight, looks like he comes from the wrong side of the tracks, has face tattoos, and probably needs some dental work. And he knows and acknowledges all of that. And what's more, he'll talk openly about having fallen in with the wrong crowd when he was younger, having spent time in jail and made mistakes that he regrets nowadays. In other words, if you were to have asked this dude years ago, how are you doing? The answer wouldn't have been, I'm fine, how are you? There would have been some real talk going on there about what his life is like. And he wouldn't have blown smoke up your kilt about it. And he doesn't today either, for that matter. And his music is seeing meteoric success. I know why. All you have to do is go to his YouTube channel and look at the comments under his songs like Save Me or Need a Favor, and you'll see people writing that they were brought to tears by this music. For example, comments like, finally, music that I can relate to. That sounds like me up there singing. Matter of fact, in many cases, it looks like me up there singing. And you can either like his music or not. Doesn't matter to me a whit. But, like I said, the guy's selling tons on iTunes, and he's selling it to people who maybe weren't even country music fans before they heard the likes of him. That's about as real, about as gritty, about as visceral as it gets, and it's just one example of how people are starting to want to keep it real again. Now, in closing, I don't think it's all people who want to keep it real again. There are always those people who are going to want to piss on your leg and tell you it's raining. Like I said, there's two different kinds of people, right? But those people who want to tell it like it is, wear it on their sleeve, and get real with each other once again, are starting to speak up, and they're starting to be heard, not only amongst themselves, but by the media at large. What does this have to do with your masculinity? Well, authenticity makes you appear to be a more confident provider and protector to women everywhere. You're not pretending to be something you're not. You'll stand up, you'll defend, you'll fight for what you believe, and that's always incredibly attractive, especially to women of character. And furthermore, guess what? When you're real with yourself, you're going to be a leader in that respect, and you're going to start meeting the women who are real the same way you are real, and you're going to start connecting with more women. Want to talk about this or anything else? Scot at mountaintoppodcast.com. That's all for now. This is Scot McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
As always, visit mountaintoppodcast.com for more.